daydreamed about ditching the cubicle farm and becoming your own boss.
It's a pretty tempting thought.
Yeah, it is tempting. But then there's that big question. Where do you even begin? Where do you set up shop? Well, today we're diving into a state that might just surprise you.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We're talking about Iowa.
Iowa, huh?
Yeah. We're taking apart this article called, Is Iowa a Good Place to Start a Business? Let's see what we can dig up.
I am curious about this. I've always been fascinated by how innovation can pop up in unexpected places.
And this article really doesn't hold back. You know, it positions Iowa as this haven for entrepreneurs, even going so far as to say it rivals like Silicon Valley and New York City.
Wow. I mean, it really challenges how people see Iowa, right? Because you're right, people think cornfields. But this article highlights something most folks don't think about, just how business-friendly Iowa actually is.
It's true. Okay, so get this. They're saying the median home price in Iowa is something like 45% lower than the national average.
Seriously.
Rent's about 30% less, too. It's wild.
That's a game changer. Imagine all that extra money you could be putting back into your business, or even just having a bit of breathing room when you're just starting out.
Exactly. And they're not just talking about housing. They're saying it's cheaper across the board, utilities, electricity, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they want entrepreneurs to actually, keep their hard-earned cash.
It does sound like Iowa's saying, hey, come start your business here and actually keep some of your profits for once.
Right. But it gets even better. The article talks about how the state government is like this super supportive mentor, always cheering entrepreneurs on.
It's true. And they're not just cheering from the sidelines. They're actually out there on the field, offering tangible support.
Right. Forget struggling with bureaucracy. Iowa's got a one-stop shop for all the registrations and permits you could ever need. And get this, they've got a small business liaison at the Iowa Economic Development Authority.
Wait, a small business liaison? Is that like a guardian angel for businesses, helping them navigate the government maze? Pretty much. They're there to help entrepreneurs find the resources they need and make sure they're not getting lost in all the paperwork.
That's incredible.
And speaking of resources, the article talks about a whole bunch of initiatives they've got going on. The Targeted Small Business Program, the Future Ready Iowa Program for workforce development. You name it, they've got you covered.
It's like they've built this whole safety net so entrepreneurs can just focus on their businesses instead of battling paperwork.
Exactly.
And then there's the tax incentives. Get ready, listeners, because this is where things get interesting.
Oh, tell me about it. The article breaks it all down, Iowa's tax rates compared to the national average. It's a pretty stark difference.
Yeah. Like, for example, corporate income tax in Iowa maxes out at 9.8%, but the national average is 21%.
That's a huge difference.
It's massive. And their R&D tax credit, it's actually refundable. It's like free money.
It's like finding a $20 bill in your pocket, right?
Exactly. We're talking property tax breaks, sales tax refunds, the whole 9 yards. But let's shift gears a bit here. Besides these financial perks, what kind of businesses are actually doing well in Iowa? Because honestly, most people just think of cornfields, right?
It's true. The cornfields are pretty hard to miss. And the article does talk about how important agriculture is to Iowa.
Right.
But here's the cool part. They're not just growing things. They're really pushing the boundaries of agriculture. We're talking value-added agriculture, specialized food production, organic farming. They're even looking into vertical farming.
So instead of just feeding the world, Iowa's now at the forefront of figuring out the future of food.
That's exactly it.
Wow. That's really impressive.
And let's not forget, those cornfields do play a role in making them a leader in ethanol production.
Right. And speaking of forward thinking, the article mentions how Iowa's become a leader in renewable energy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, get this. Over 40% of Iowa's electricity comes from wind power. They're number 2 in the whole country for wind energy.
Seriously.
And it's not just wind. They're making big moves in biofuels and solar, too.
Wow. So if you're an entrepreneur who cares about the environment, it sounds like Iowa's the place to be.
100%.
And for those looking even further into the future, the article also talks about Iowa's push into advanced manufacturing.
They are really ramping that up.
Yeah. Advanced manufacturing in Iowa.
That sounds a little unexpected, doesn't it? What does that even look like? Are we talking about like robots making tractors?
You're not far off. They're taking those cutting edge technologies like automation, robotics, 3D printing, all that futuristic stuff, and they're integrating them into their existing industries.
So it's less about replacing jobs and more about like giving their workforce these superpower tools.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder. And for the savvy entrepreneur, this opens up a world of opportunities. Imagine creating a business that helps farms integrate robotics, or one that develops software for smart factories that process food. It's like they've created the perfect setting for a technological revolution, but one that actually plays to Iowa's strengths. That's some next-level strategic thinking.
It really is.
But wait, there's more. They haven't stopped at just manufacturing, have they? They're also developing these tech hubs across the state.
Oh, yeah, they're popping up everywhere. And they're not just throwing darts at a map and hoping for the best. They're strategically building these hubs around industries where they're already strong.
So it's like they're playing chess, not checkers.
Exactly. Like Des Moines, for example, has a really strong financial services sector, right? So naturally, they're becoming a hotbed for fintech and insurtech startups.
It's like they're saying, we're already good at this, so let's be great at what comes next.
Exactly.
What about other parts of the state? What other tech gems are they polishing up?
Well, Cedar Rapids, for example, has always been big in aerospace, so not surprisingly, they're becoming a hub for aerospace and defense technology. They've already got giants like Collins Aerospace there, and now they're attracting tons of startups that want to innovate in that same space.
It's fascinating how they're leveraging what they're already known for to get a foothold in these really advanced fields. But we've been talking a lot about high-tech industries, haven't we? What about other sectors? What if someone's really passionate about, say, sustainable agriculture or locally sourced food? Does Iowa have anything to offer them?
Absolutely. In fact, the article specifically talks about how Iowa's agricultural roots are a huge asset when it comes to attracting those kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
The demand for sustainable and local food is only growing, so where better to be than the heartland of American agriculture? Right?
It's like they're in the perfect position to take advantage of this trend. I mean, imagine a food startup in Iowa getting their ingredients straight from local farms and then using all those cool high-tech manufacturing techniques we talked about to create brand new products.
Now that's what I call farm to table.
It's like a foodie's dream. But speaking of essential ingredients, the article also talks about Iowa's skilled workforce as a major factor in their success.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can have all the tax breaks and fancy industries in the world, but without talented people to make it all work, you're dead in the water.
Exactly. So tell me, what makes their workforce so special? What's the secret sauce?
Well, for one thing, they've got a really solid educational foundation. Universities like Iowa State are producing highly skilled graduates in fields like engineering, agriculture, and business.
So the brainpower is definitely there. But having a degree is only part of the equation, right?
Yeah.
Don't you need actual hands-on experience to really thrive in today's job market?
You got it. And that's where Iowa's workforce development programs come in. Remember those programs we talked about, like Future Ready Iowa?
Okay.
They're designed to teach Iowans the specific skills that employers are looking for, especially in those high-demand fields we've been talking about, like advanced manufacturing and tech.
Mm-hmm. So they're not just waiting for the workforce of the future to show up. They're actively building it.
Precisely.
That's impressive. It's one thing to attract businesses, but it's another to actually have the talent pool to support those businesses as they grow.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's say you're an entrepreneur, you've got this great idea, you're convinced Iowa is the place to be. How do you even start looking for funding? Are we talking loans, grants, venture capitalists circling overhead?
Well, luckily, you've got options. Iowa has this surprisingly diverse range of funding and support systems for startups. It's like a buffet for entrepreneurs.
Well, I like buffets.
We're talking about government grants and loans, angel investors, venture capitalists, incubators, accelerators, crowdfunding. They've really got it all.
It's like they thought of everything.
Okay.
So let's break that down for listeners who might be new to this whole funding thing. Let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What exactly are angel investors and venture capitalists? And how are they different from, say, a bank loan?
Great question. So angel investors and venture capitalists, think of them as wealthy individuals or firms who are always on the lookout for the next big thing.
Okay.
They invest in promising startups, and typically they do this in exchange for equity in the company. In other words, ownership.
So it's not like a loan where you have to pay back a specific amount.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving up a part of your company in exchange for their money and hopefully their guidance and connections, right?
Exactly. It's more like gaining a strategic partner than just a lender. Now, angel investors typically invest in the very early stages of a business when it's still just an idea, whereas venture capitalists tend to come in later on when the company's already gained some traction.
So it's like climbing a ladder, and there are different kinds of investors on each rung.
Perfect analogy.
Okay. And what about incubators and accelerators? Where do they fit into all of this?
Think of them like boot camps for startups. They provide mentoring, resources, sometimes even office space, and often a bit of seed funding to get you going. It's a crash course in all things entrepreneurship.
So if you're new to the game, or maybe you're a seasoned entrepreneur, but you're new to Iowa, plugging into an incubator or accelerator could be huge.
Huge. And they often have a demo day where startups get to pitch their ideas to a room full of investors. It's pretty intense.
It's like Shark Tank, but in Iowa.
Exactly.
And then there's crowdfunding. That's become a popular way to raise capital these days. What are your thoughts on that as a funding source?
It's a great option. And it's not even just about the money, although that's obviously important. Crowdfunding can be an excellent way to test out your business idea, generate buzz, and even connect with potential customers before you launch.
So it's like a public test drive where you can see if people are actually excited about what you're offering.
Exactly.
That's smart.
And the best part is, you don't have to be some big shot company to run a crowdfunding campaign.
Wow.
It's really accessible to anyone.
So whether you're starting a tech company or a local bakery, there's a funding option out there in Iowa. But let's not sugarcoat things. Starting a business, even in a supportive place like Iowa, is hard work. What are some of the challenges entrepreneurs should expect to face?
Right. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. One thing the article mentions is that customer retention can be tricky, especially for businesses that are located in more rural parts of the state.
That makes sense. Location, 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 as they say. And I guess with a state like Iowa, where you have larger cities, but also a lot of rural areas, that's a big consideration for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
What else?
Well, they also talk about how important it is for businesses to adapt as technology changes. Iowa might be making strides, but keeping up with tech is crucial for any business, no matter where you are.
Right. You can't just set up shop and assume you're good to go. You've got to be willing to adapt and evolve to survive. What about funding? Did they mention any challenges in actually accessing funding and support in Iowa?
While they do highlight a lot of funding sources, they also make it clear that it's not a walk in the park. You're still going to face competition, whether it's applying for government grants, pitching to angel investors and venture capitalists, or running a crowdfunding campaign.
Right. It's not like they're just handing out money to anyone with a business idea.
Definitely not. Entrepreneurs still need to be able to articulate their vision, prove they've got a solid business plan, and convince investors that their idea is worth backing.
So be prepared to hustle. But even with those challenges, it sounds like Iowa has created a really attractive environment for entrepreneurs. It's like they're saying, come for the affordable living and the supportive community, stay for the innovative industries and the potential to make a real difference.
That's a great way to put it.
And that wraps up part 1 of our deep dive into Iowa's entrepreneurial scene. We've learned a lot about how the state is really committed to creating a thriving business environment, from the surprisingly low cost of living to their embrace of all these cutting-edge technologies. But we've only scratched the surface.
There's a lot more to uncover.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Iowa's entrepreneurial scene. So far, we've uncovered some pretty amazing advantages for businesses in Iowa, from that surprisingly affordable cost of living to, their wholehearted embrace of cutting-edge tech.
It's been eye-opening, for sure. But let's shift gears a bit and put ourselves in the listener's shoes for a second. If you were thinking about taking the plunge and launching a business in Iowa, what are some of the things you absolutely need to consider?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It sounds promising, but nothing's guaranteed. What should entrepreneurs be doing to set themselves up for success?
Well, just like building a house, you wouldn't start without a solid foundation. And in the DZF world, that foundation is market research.
Makes sense. So what does that look like in the context of Iowa?
It's about really understanding your target audience in Iowa. Who are your ideal customers? What are their needs, their pain points? What's already out there? And how does your idea stack up against the competition?
So it's not enough to just have a cool idea. You have to make sure there are actually people in Iowa who are willing to pay for it.
Exactly. And that's where Iowa's resources can really come in handy. Remember those small business development centers, SBDCs, we talked about earlier?
Right.
They offer free business counseling and can help you conduct thorough market research specifically for the Iowa market.
It's like having a personal guide through the Iowa business jungle.
Yeah.
They can prevent you from making some costly mistakes early on.
Absolutely. But remember, it's not just about crunching numbers. Talking to real Iowans, attending industry events, that's crucial. It's about understanding the why behind the data.
It's like the difference between reading a travel brochure and actually exploring a new city.
100%.
Yeah.
You need that on-the-ground experience. But market research is just the first step. What else should entrepreneurs be thinking about?
Well, we talked about how supportive the business community seems to be in Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you actually tap into that network?
That's where good old-fashioned networking comes in.
Right? Business is all about relationships. It's about connecting with people who can offer advice, open doors, and maybe even become future collaborators or investors. So how do you make those connections in Iowa?
Well, from what I've heard, Iowans are a pretty friendly bunch, so that's a good start. Attending industry events, joining local business organizations, those are all great ways to meet people.
It's about putting yourself out there. What's that saying? You get what you give.
Exactly. If you're willing to invest the time and effort in building relationships, those relationships will pay off down the road.
Those connections could lead to invaluable advice, potential partnerships, maybe even funding opportunities. It's about surrounding yourself with a supportive community.
Couldn't agree more. It's about having people in your corner, cheering you on every step of the way. But even with the best support system, you can't build a successful business alone, right?
You need a team. And luckily, the article talks about how Iowa's got a secret weapon in that department, their skilled workforce.
Oh, absolutely. Remember those amazing universities and workforce development programs we talked about? They're producing some incredibly talented people.
That must be a huge advantage. But finding the right people, that's one of the biggest challenges for any business owner, isn't it?
It's true. And the article talks about this too. It's like putting together a puzzle. You need to find the missing pieces that complement your skills, who share your vision.
It's not just about finding people with the right skills on paper, though, right? It's about finding people who fit the culture you're creating.
100%. Especially in a startup environment. You're looking for people who are passionate about your mission, who are willing to wear multiple hats, and who aren't afraid of a challenge.
It's about finding people who are as excited about your business as you are.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say you've got your market research, you're building your network, you're assembling your dream team. What about the less glamorous stuff? The permits, the licenses, the taxes.
The administrative hurdles. It can definitely feel overwhelming.
It's like navigating a bureaucratic maze. But remember, the article did say that Iowa's worked hard to be business friendly. What kind of support systems do they have in place to help entrepreneurs navigate those logistical hoops?
Well, for starters, remember that one-stop business portal we talked about earlier. That's not just for information. You can actually take care of a lot of those registrations and permits right there online.
So no more running around to different government offices trying to figure out who to talk to.
Exactly. They've really streamlined the process. But of course, every state has its own unique requirements, and Iowa is no exception.
Right.
The article stresses the importance of really understanding those state and local tax requirements. That's something that can trip people up.
Taxes. The one word that can strike fear into the heart of any entrepreneur. But wait a minute. Didn't we talk about Iowa having some pretty awesome tax incentives for businesses?
We did. And this is where it gets interesting. Iowa offers a bunch of tax breaks, like property tax abatements and corporate income tax credits, especially for businesses in those key industries we discussed, advanced manufacturing, renewable energy, that sort of thing.
So while entrepreneurs definitely need to understand the tax requirements, there's also some serious potential to save money. It's about knowing what's available and making sure you qualify.
Exactly. And that's where it can be really helpful to bring in an expert. The article talks about how important it is to consult with a tax professional or an attorney who specializes in business law. They can make sure you're taking advantage of all those incentives and avoiding any potential issues.
It's like having a financial Sherpa guiding you through all that complicated tax stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. So besides taxes, what other logistical things should entrepreneurs be thinking about?
Well, depending on the industry, there are things like zoning laws, environmental regulations, and employment laws to consider.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It can feel like a lot, for sure, but this is where those SBDCs we mentioned earlier can really come in handy. They offer free counseling on all sorts of topics, and they can connect you with specialists in different areas who can help you understand those regulations and make sure you're in compliance.
So there are resources to help entrepreneurs navigate it all.
Exactly. Iowa seems to get that making it easier to do business isn't just good for entrepreneurs, it's good for the whole state.
It's a win-win. Okay, so we've talked about market research, networking, building a team, navigating all the regulations. But what about the day-to-day of actually running a business in Iowa?
Right.
What are some of the unique advantages and challenges of actually being on the ground there?
Well, one of the biggest advantages, and we've mentioned this before, is the low cost of living. For startups and small businesses, especially when they're just starting out, that can make a huge difference.
Right. Lower overhead means you can stretch your budget further, you can reinvest more money back into the business, and maybe even offer better salaries to attract talent.
Precisely. And that's a big deal, especially when you're competing with companies in pricier parts of the country.
It's like having a secret weapon.
Yeah.
But it's not all about the numbers, is it? The article also talks about how Iowa's strong work ethic is a huge asset.
Absolutely. Iowans have a reputation for being incredibly hardworking, dedicated, and loyal. And when you're trying to build something from the ground up, that kind of work ethic is priceless.
It's like having a team of people who are just as invested in the success of the business as you are.
Exactly.
And then there's that sense of community we keep talking about. The article says that translates to a really supportive environment for businesses. People want to help each other out, share their knowledge.
It's that famous Midwestern hospitality, right?
Exactly. It's refreshing to see collaboration celebrated over cutthroat competition,
100%. But let's be real, no place is perfect. What are some of the challenges entrepreneurs might bump into in Iowa?
Well, the article does mention the potential difficulty of attracting and keeping top talent, especially in those high-demand fields like tech. With remote work becoming the norm, the competition is fierce, even in a place as great as Iowa.
It's a great point. You can't just expect people to uproot their lives and move to Iowa for a job anymore. You have to sell them on the whole package, the lifestyle, the community, the opportunities for growth.
So it's about creating an employee experience that goes beyond just the job itself.
Exactly.
What about staying connected to the global marketplace? Does the article talk about that at all?
It does. Iowa has a lot to offer, but the world is becoming more and more interconnected, right? The article emphasizes how crucial it is for businesses to have a global mindset, to network outside of Iowa, and stay on top of global trends.
Because even if your business is based in Iowa, your clients could be anywhere. It's about finding that balance between embracing Iowa's unique strengths and plugging into the global marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So while Iowa has a ton of advantages, it also comes with its own set of challenges, which is true of, just about anywhere.
Right. Starting a business is never easy. It's about being aware of the challenges and being ready to tackle them head on.
And it sounds like Iowa has done a lot to prepare entrepreneurs for those challenges.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We spent the last two parts really digging into Iowa's entrepreneurial scene and, uncovering some surprising things about the Hawkeye State.
Definitely surprising. From its affordability and that strong sense of community to its really unexpected embrace of innovation, Iowa's building a compelling case for itself.
It's been eye-opening, for sure. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's take a step back and think about what we've learned. What are the biggest takeaways, would you say, about how Iowa is approaching entrepreneurship?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is their multifaceted approach. It's not just one thing. They're tackling it from all these different angles.
Right. They've created this whole ecosystem that's designed to support businesses at every stage.
Exactly. It's not about just luring businesses in with empty promises. They're creating an environment where those businesses can actually grow and thrive long term.
And they're not afraid to challenge those preconceived notions, are they? That whole idea of where innovation happens.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking their agricultural roots and at the same time building a reputation for cutting-edge technology. It's a pretty cool mix.
That's what makes their story so interesting. They're not trying to be the next Silicon Valley. They're doing their own thing, and it seems to be working.
And they're playing the long game, which I respect. It's not about quick wins. It's about investing in the future, in infrastructure, education, and quality of life.
That long-term vision is so important. They're creating something that's built to last, something that can adapt and evolve.
Speaking of the future, let's talk about what all this entrepreneurial energy could mean for Iowa's economy down the road.
I think it has the potential to be incredibly impactful. By fostering the spirit of entrepreneurship, they're creating jobs, drawing in investment, and making their economy more diverse and resilient.
Right. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket, which is smart. Instead, they're supporting a wide range of industries.
Exactly. And that diversity not only makes their economy stronger, but it also creates more opportunities for everyone. We're talking better jobs, more tax revenue. The benefits trickle down.
It's a win-win for everyone involved. So we've been laser focused on Iowa, but what are some of the broader lessons here that other states or even countries could learn from Iowa's example?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways is the power of collaboration. Iowa really seems to understand that fostering entrepreneurship isn't a one-man show. It takes a village, right? The government, schools, businesses, community groups, they're all working together.
They've broken down those silos and built these really effective partnerships.
Exactly. And another important lesson is the power of authenticity. Iowa isn't trying to be something it's not. They're embracing their strengths, celebrating what makes them unique, and that's incredibly powerful.
They're writing their own playbook, and it seems to be working.
Exactly. And finally, I think Iowa teaches us that you don't need to be in a big city on the coast to build a thriving startup scene. You can do it anywhere if you've got the right ingredients. A supportive community, an openness to new ideas, and a real passion for building something special.
I love that. Iowa has shown us that sometimes the best opportunities are in the places we least expect.
It's a good reminder to think outside the box, challenge those assumptions, and never underestimate a good idea, no matter where it comes from.
So well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Iowa's entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. It's been fascinating to learn about how much more there is to Iowa than meets the eye.
It sounds like they're just getting started, a true hidden gem that's quickly becoming a magnet for innovators and dreamers of all kinds.
And hopefully, their story inspires others to take the leap and pursue their own entrepreneurial dreams, no matter where they are.
Beautifully put. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure picking your brain.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to all of you listening, keep those amazing ideas coming. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a new and surprising corner of the business world. Until then, this is The Deep Dive signing off.